everyone. Let me pull up some slides and we'll get started. All right, welcome everyone to World Staffing Summit. Today is Technology Day, brought to you by Talent Tech Labs. Well, this is one of the final sessions of the World Staffing Summit. This topic of automation is certainly one of the most important subjects in the staffing industry today. Hello, I'm Maurice Fuller, and I'm the founder of Staffing Tech. I work with staffing firms to help select ATS systems, to build high-performance tech stacks, and to help staffing firms get maximum value from their existing technology. And I'm super passionate about automation because I experience every single day just how manually intensive our industry is. Every day, worldwide, millions of hours are spent pushing manual processes forward. This is slow, it's inefficient, and it's extremely expensive. Internal labor cost is the single largest category of expense on our P&L statements. And so there's tremendous opportunity to automate and save cost. But in fact, with all the technology that we have at our disposal today, less than 5% of the processes that we perform are automated. So there's tremendous opportunity to automate. Everybody sees this opportunity. That's why more than 80% of companies have top-level digital transformation and automation initiatives. But here's the challenge, is that only a small percentage of these companies that are pursuing these initiatives are achieving their targeted outcomes. So that's what we want to explore today in our session. How do you build a successful automation program? What technologies should you use? Where should you prioritize your investments? How do we lead, govern, manage, and measure our impact so we can have meaningful improvements in our financial results? And with me to answer these questions are some top experts. Mitchell Martin, Director of Recruiting, Matthew Franklin, Catalytic Regional Director, Michael Barney, and Sense co-founder, Pankaj Jindal. Welcome, everybody. I'm thrilled to be with you today. Let's start with introductions, starting with Matt.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Maurice. Matt Franklin. Been in the industry for nearly 25 years. Very passionate about technology and its impact on our industry. Been at the forefront through ATS selection, tool selection, et cetera. And I work very closely with our CTO, making sure that we have all the right tools being put in place and utilization, et cetera. And I think this is a great topic and one that's a lot of buzz in the industry. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of our experience with you all in the program.
All right, fantastic. Michael?
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Michael Barney with Catalytic. Nice to be hanging out with you today and looking forward to the discussion. Like you, I've spent the majority of my career in this industry sector, but for me, it was from the technology side. Combined 15 years in the vendor management or VMS space specifically. Started out initially with IQ Navigator, but most of it was actually spent with Fieldglass back in those early startup days, right on through to the acquisition and past with SAP. I've joined the chief technology officer and co-founder of Fieldglass, who started Catalytic, been here three and a half years. And it's just a perfect spot for me because it combined my passion for non-employee labor, technology, and then the new frontier of AI and machine learning and automation and all that fun stuff we'll talk about today. So thanks.
All right, fantastic. And Pankaj?
Hi, hello everybody, and I'll round up this bald and beautiful panel here. My name is Pankaj. I'm one of the founders of Sense. We are a talent engagement platform, started about 6 years ago. And before that, I spent 15 years running staffing companies, started them, built them, operated them, sold them. So I've been an operator and owner in the space and very passionate about the industry and very passionate about how we can automate this industry to make every staffing company and every recruiter a best version of themselves. So looking forward to the conversation. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much. All right, question for all of you to kick things off. Automation is being enabled through a wide range of technologies, including robotic process automation tools, chatbots, onboarding tools, mobile apps, and even Zapier integrations. How should staffing firm leaders think about automation in a broad sense? Let's start with you, Pankaj.
Yeah, I can kick us off. I mean, from when I talk to CEOs in the staffing industry, I think the number one thing we hear a lot about and the number one thing we prescribe a lot is anything that you're currently doing repetitively, there is a potential to automate that. So when you are thinking about automation, there are probably two ways to think about it. One is take any repetitive task that a recruiter is doing more than 3 or 4 times in a month, in a week, in a day, and automate that so you absolutely improve recruiter productivity. And then secondly, how do you take sort of revenue generating tasks, your best salesperson, your best recruiter, everybody that is doing exactly what you want your company to do, and then make sure that that is replicated across every single human being? So can you take the best practices that you want and make sure that they become table stakes for your company? The two other things I would add to this is it's very important that as you think about automation, you still keep your recruiters within your system of record. So, choose something that actually integrates with your platform and it's not actually bifurcating your people into many, many different tools and so on and so forth. And lastly, when you think about automation, make sure it is measurable. You just don't do it because it is the sexy new thing. You do it simply because it's actually measurable. It improves the metrics that you care about, whether it is recruiter productivity, whether it is more redeployment, whether it is number of hires, whether it is candidate sourced, whatever you care about, those are the metrics that automation needs to enable for you.
Okay, fantastic. Michael, same question. How should staffing firm leaders think about automation in a broad sense?
It's kind of ironic because I think that the answer is actually in your question, which is exactly that more broadly. I mean, if you think about what's going on right now with automation in general, there's like a tsunami of point solutions that are coming on the market. I mean, it's overwhelming, and I don't know how a small, medium, or even large size staffing firm can kind of get their head around it. So I think we just need to leave this era of automation as a feature-driven point solution and start thinking about it far more broadly about where it can be applied, not just to point solutions like application to offer or reading resumes, but where can it be applied across the entire business, outside of just recruiting, outside of just talent acquisition, front office, back office, procurement. I mean, that is a different way to think of automation. But then here's the deal. If you're going to do that, the only way you'll ever get that accomplished is if you lower the bar to entry, and eliminate the requirement for technical developers in IT to build and stand up the automations. You got to be able to put the automation capability in the hands of the business, the non-techies, the business owners. And when you do that, beautiful things can happen in terms of scaling. And this is an extreme example, but it makes the point. Our biggest customer is Bosch. They just passed the 2,000th process automated on our platform. And the point of that is it shows that enabling the citizen developer, the average, process owner, is very possible, and I think really important.
All right. That sounds great. Matt, tell me how you think about how the leadership team at Mitchell Martin thinks about automation.
Yeah, so I'll dovetail of what both gentlemen just said, and I think this is really what most successful staffing firms should be asking themselves right now. First of all, automation is not going away. It's not a staffing issue. It's across any issue, and it's particularly prevalent in the professional services space, which we all sit in. So the questions you should be asking yourself internally: how is automation going to enhance my service offering, both internally and externally? Not if it's going to. The answer is how is it going to, right? And if you're struggling with that, I'll give you another follow-up. And I think Pankaj touched on it in his remarks. What processes do we have in our current companies right now that are constant areas of frustration, criticism, and inefficiencies? And as a business leader, I am responsible for over 100 resources globally. If you're not sure if you have inefficient or processes that are broken, then you're really not doing a good job. And you really need to find out what is the source of pain. And I don't mean finding Java candidates for Silicon Valley. That's not a process problem. That's a that's a world problem.
Yeah.
What are your people that you're spending good money for every day frustrated with when they go home or log off for the day, saying, "Man, I wish we could figure out how to do a better job doing X, Y, and Z."
Yeah.
At Mitchell Martin, we're a fairly large company. We have a list of about 90 things that we would like to solve. Are we going to get to all of them? No. But the question really is, do we know where the issues are? And what, if any, can automation, what part can automation play in overcoming some of these obstacles? Yeah. Not only is it critical for business, but it's critical for retention of your employees. If people feel like they're not being enabled and they're doing tasks that are not really high enough function for them, ultimately they're going to find a place that has found a way to make those tasks more palatable. So
right.
Very, 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 very important that we stay cutting edge. Sorry, Maurice.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Matt, so you've been at this for a while. Tell us about the automation journey you've been on at Mitchell Martin, how you got started, and where you are today.
Yeah, I'll be as brief as possible here. Started down this path 4 or 5 years ago. A lot of buzz at that time. I think there's still a lot of buzz. The automation companies are very, very good at sales and marketing. Messaging, I think, has changed. I think it's actually gotten more relevant, which is good. We set forth really with some basic stuff. We had a lot of success around operations and onboarding and time collection, which is really not that exciting. But when you look at your processes, if you take 6 people to collect time, and with automation you can cut it down to 2, well, you've just become pretty, more efficient. So that was our initial stance. Then we saw some early wins and some workflows around our consultant population. We call those our in-flight people. So, we have a couple of thousand people that go to work for us every day. Touching base with them in an automated fashion. It was falling between the cracks of our salespeople and recruiters. Will you do it? Will you do it? I don't want to do it. I forgot to do it. So we saw some small wins around that. And really now we're starting to use automation to help us build more of these talent pools, talent funnels, alumni networks, where we're able to stay in touch with people without really having to have a lot of man hours dedicated to it. Lastly, our belief in automation is so strong. About 20 months ago, we actually hired our first CTO at Mitchell Martin, and he came out of one of the big 5 companies with a background in RPA, which is robotic process automation. And we believe that staffing firms that are gonna enable and take in automation, whether they do it homegrown or through a packaged solution or a little bit of both, will be the ones that will be able to be standing well into the future. So pretty bullish on the space.
Yeah, that makes sense. How about the impact that automation has had on your operations? Have you been able to measure the impact through the lens of your KPIs and financial indicators? And which departments and functions at Mitchell Martin would you say have had the highest ROI as a result of these automation initiatives?
Yep. Again, initial wins were probably more onboarding and back office based. Our second stage was really more consultant care, consultant retention. And we've had tremendous success identifying issues with people in flight, getting in front of them. And really, it's actually taught us volumes about how we handle our people. Sometimes just asking people if they're happy seems so obvious, but we were doing a pretty poor job of it. So that's been a nice win for us. Going forward, though, we're really focusing more now on talent and lead generation from both our candidates and our existing clients.
Okay, fantastic. All right, let's take a look at some successes across the industry. Pankaj, some of your customers have seen significant improvements in operational efficiencies and speeds. I was wondering if you could share with us a before and after success story.
I can share with you several, Maurice, but I'll, in the interest of time, I'm going to walk the audience through 2 or 3 really quick examples, and I'll try and touch all facets for our audience. So first thing that comes to my mind is a $1 billion organization. They hire about 30 to 40,000 people a year, staffing company, mainly concentrated in commercial light industrial space. One of the things that they realized after they started using automation from Sense, and I'm specifically talking about the chatbot functionality, which is essentially a conversational recruiting assistant, if you will. So natural language based chatbot. Some of the KPIs that they came up with literally 3 months into using their chatbot were things like a 263% increase in the number of candidates they were screening, a 30 to 81% decrease in the amount of time it takes them to fill a job. And they saved over 800 hours of recruiter time while automatically scheduling 25,000 meetings. So this is a chatbot talking to you about, hey, are you authorized to work in the US? How much money do you want? Do you ever gotten a felony? Are you, will you subject yourself to a COVID screening every day? Can you lift 50 pounds a day? Can you stand on your feet for 8 hours a day? All of this works for us. Great. Automatically scheduling you with a recruiter. The meeting's already on the calendar of the recruiter for a time that works for you, the candidate, which means you're going to show up, and they're reducing time to fill. The second thing I'm thinking about is another organization. They're mainly IT focused. Again, over $1 billion in revenue. And in the last 3 years that they've been working with us, they've redeployed 36,000 people.
Wow.
Let that sink in for a second, because when you talk to most staffing companies, they'll tell you that their redeployment rates are in the single low digits.
Mm-hmm.
In the low single digits, I'm sorry. So, that's how bad redeployment is in our industry. But again, they were able to use, a part of our automation suite, they were able to use the job matching functionality where they can automatically figure out if somebody's coming out of assignment, what are the 5 next best jobs to send them over to. And they've now done over 36,000 redeployments.
Phenomenal.
And then the last example I was going to give was about a company that, and this happens all the time, especially with the last 2 years that we've been through in our life of a pandemic, when, on Friday, you will get a message that says, hey, we can use 50 more healthcare professionals in this hospital facility by Monday. And this is Friday. They want these people on a Monday. Literally, automation comes to their rescue, where they're simply sending out a message to 10,000 people, automatically screening them using a chatbot, automatically scheduling them, automatically verifying their credentials, and essentially sending them a tentative offer letter and saying, you can start on Monday once we've had a 30-second conversation with you, or once we've done a remote verification of your IDs. So, we are maniacal about ROI, and this is exactly where I think automation helps, where you can actually come in and say, these are your key KPIs, these are your key metrics that we actually improved. So those are some examples that might resonate with our audience today.
Yeah, that's so exciting to hear what you've been able to accomplish, Pankaj. Michael, same question. Catalytics is being used by some of the largest enterprise staffing firms in the world. What are some use cases that Catalytic is addressing, and what's the impact that Catalytic has had?
Yeah, I'll be happy to comment on that. First of all, we can cite hundreds of different use cases. Our customers have been, which many are our peers or the folks on the phone, have been incredibly public about their use cases. So it's really fun to pick through them and kind of see what could be applicable. But one thing that comes to mind just right off the bat is when we talk about the benefit of a use case, people, I think, are very singularly focused when they talk about the ROI. And they're hyper-focused on, labor and time savings and efficiencies. And that's awesome. And for a lot of use cases, that does carry the day of the business case. But just when you think about automating a process, that's not always what does it. Sometimes you can make an argument that automation is going to address a risk or a compliance or a data integrity, concern. Often you can make an argument that automating the process improves the user experience. Maybe it has nothing to do with like saving countless hours. Maybe it just makes a better experience for whoever's involved with the process. So I just like to throw that out there because I think it's always healthy to remind yourself of the business consequences and why you would even venture down the road of automation in the first place. I think there's an opportunity again to change the narrative here, because again, people, when they think of automation, they often get very kind of siloed in their thinking. They get very point solution related. And a lot of the use cases, take an example like in the application to offer process, automating getting an offer letter generated. There's a bunch of stuff that can be automated, right? It starts with fetching data from other systems. You might even want to layer in a little AI to help determine what the prevailing or the appropriate rate should be in the offer letter in the first place. There's all sorts of tedious manual tasks that can be automated, like assembling the document, like routing it internally from approval. Eventually you add workflow and send it to the applicant. The applicant then, you may want to invoke e-signature. And then eventually you wrap more workflow about it, send it back to the staffing firm, and then you may update other systems. My point is there's a lot of different sub steps that can be automated. But the beauty, if you start thinking about automation as a platform that can be applied broadly across your company, not just for, say, in this case, recruiting. You can start applying those same fundamental building blocks that I just described in generating an offer letter to like invoicing, to accruals for your finance department. It has to basically do the same stuff, but they're just doing it because they're trying to get an accruals report out at the end of the quarter.
Sure.
And that's the part I wanted to leave everybody with is think bigger. Don't think so tactical. I'm not saying point solution things aren't necessary. That's what you're going to start with, but there's a bigger opportunity. And then the proof point or example that I like to share, because you guys respect them, them, it's Guidant Global. In 2 quarters, they trained up 30 people. Those aren't developers. Those are business owners. Those are, people in the talent acquisition department or in finance. And they cranked processes, had 14 stacked up in the queue, and it impacted all across their business, from talent acquisition to billing to the VMS implementation team, SRM, IT, service excellence, and talent.
All right.
And I think that's cool. And again, the only way that's even possible is if you dumb this technology way down, make it no code, so you don't need IT and developers. And I'll talk more about that later. And you can put it in the hands of the business owner. Hopefully that helps.
Amazing what you've been able to achieve. I want to get into some of the challenges and headwinds that we're experiencing in the industry. Pankaj, some staffing firms like Mitchell Martin have made tremendous progress with automation, but there are many that are making little headway. What is it that firms are doing differently? The ones that are succeeding, why are they succeeding while others are not?
Yeah, this is a great question, Maurice. I talk about this a lot. First of all, you're going to get out of automation what you put into it. I'll tell you some of our most successful customers, what they've done. They've actually taken the time to do what they call a time study for about 30 days. They've literally taken the time to figure out, here is every single one of our recruiters. This is what they've done for, let's say, 30 days straight, or every single one of our salespeople. They're absolutely able to figure out and say, okay, you're spending 30% of your time in prospecting. You're spending 40% of your time in screening and scheduling candidates. You're spending 10% of your time in interviewing people, 10% of your time in rolling out offers. So they actually start with the root cause of, here are repetitive things that we do want to automate. Automation in my mind is table stakes today. There isn't any company that isn't using some form of automation. But the era of doing an automation that, sends out a quick happy birthday message or, updates a single field in your ATS, that's now table stakes. What people are looking for is, how can I automate 30 to 50 to 60% of my recruiter's life? Secondly, when you work with, a company that understands automation, like, we would literally hand over a playbook of 400 different automations that you can build in a typical staffing company. You can literally look at it as an a la carte menu and go, I'll take this, this, and this. Here is low hanging fruit. Here are things that we will automate, so on and so forth. And the last thing I'll tell you is, you obviously have to make people believers in it, because this is somewhat of a change. So you have to do some change management. I think some companies that have done a better job at change management is who've taken the low-hanging fruit and shown those wins. Like, for example, hey, you no longer ever have to send an email asking somebody for a referral. It's happening automatically. You're no longer ever sending an email asking for an exit survey, for an NPS survey, for telling somebody your job is finishing. Just things that maybe even took you 3 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, they're just going away, and actually creates happier recruiters and salespeople who can now make more money by doing more revenue generation activity.
Okay, great. I love your point about that time study. Matt, I wanted to get into some of the challenges that you and your team over at Mitchell Martin faced with your automation programs, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Trying to get off mute. All right. Yeah, I think I did it. So it's very interesting. I'll just come out and say it. People hate change, right? This is there's been countless books written about it, leadership books, management books. people really hate change when they perceive it's going to impact their job or their career prospects, right? So I think we'll throw that as like a, that's pretty obvious to everyone on this call. And I think frank conversations should be had at the leadership level to employees as you enter this automation journey, why you're doing it, right? The big question. You're not doing it to eliminate someone's job. Maybe you're doing it to actually elevate their job. You're not doing it to save money. Maybe you're actually doing it to invest money. You'll be able to make money and you'll invest in more efficiencies. And what we found is we didn't do the best job up front, to be honest. A lot of the processes that you're trying to automate are held very close to the vest by some of your long-term employees. That's what we found. And unless you're open and honest with them, along the way, they may be doing some sabotaging of progress. So I know that sounds dire and horrible, but lesson learned, and going back to my opening remarks, find the top 5 things that are going on in your company that people hate doing. So you have some momentum behind it, and say, as a company, we're trying to make these 5 things better.
That's
and
right.
If someone is responsible for that process, don't make it their fault. Almost like promote it, like we're trying to find a way to make Sally's job better, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think if you approach it that way, you'll have no problem with buy-in. But I think if you're going to get people to change and embrace new things, everyone always asks why and what's in it for me. So I think looking back on it, we could have done a better job on that front.
I love the point about delegating a task to an automation, which enables you to elevate that person to a higher level of value added.
Yeah, that to me, that's it's not a line, it's reality, right?
Yeah.
Look, if someone doesn't have that higher functioning skill set, then yes, they may ultimately not exist with your organization in the future. But yeah, the assumption is most of us have done a good job upscaling our people to begin with, and that person can be repurposed.
Okay, fantastic. Michael, could you briefly talk to us about the so-called digital transformation gap and why so many firms are falling short of expectations in pursuit of their automation goals?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of smiling, and I'm referring, I think, to the first slide you brought up, Maurice, that should be pretty shocking, actually. And it's credible. I think the stats on that, if I recall, were by Gartner, Boston Consulting Group, and Bain. So pretty believable. And I think what the headline is saying is, look, it's no mystery that people know they need to digitize and automate their business. And you need to look no further than Amazon for an example of a business that was digital, ground up. So I think we have alliance on that, or alignment on that issue. But the dirty little secret and the headline is it's not going very well. I think the number you cited in that slide was like 8%. That's single digit. It's pathetic. That's not anything to brag about. So it begs the question, why? Why are these companies struggling with automating to scale? And the answer, quite honestly, and this is super simplistic, is because it requires developers. It's expensive and they're hard to find, or you have to go lean on IT. And it's not like your IT team that has a bunch of developers lying around and looking for things to do. So it's really important to spend time learning about this new emerging concept called no code. And don't confuse that with low code. But no code is the ability to put these platforms and technology in the hands of the business owners. I mentioned it earlier, because that is the game changer. If you're not dependent on IT and you can put it in the hands of the people on your team who just know the process, it helps if they're not like freaked out by a macro, but they don't have to be programmers. They don't have to be techies. And they can not only automate and stand up automations, but remember, these automations, they change a lot. They're a reflection of your business. Look at any staffing process like onboarding. It changes all the time. It's supposed to. Again, if you're beholden to IT to make those changes and tweaks, that's a problem. But if the business owner can make those changes, that's really, quite special. So, this is a bit self-serving because at Catalytic, we've built a truly no-code technology. And all the examples I've been citing are trying to prove that. I'll sprinkle a little bit of the love around. I talked about Guidant, but Pontoon's a client of ours. Legis is a client. People 2.0. They've literally stood up amongst them hundreds of automations. And it's not limited to point solutions around just like how to enhance an ATS. It's across their entire business. And some of those processes aren't even that exciting. They're just quick little workflow wins. Call it good. Move on.
It doesn't take much. And we're going to get into some of these points about managing lots of automations when we talk about governance. I do want to get into keys to success. I think this is what everybody is interested in hearing about. If you're in the audience and you have questions, please type them into the chat function, and we'll be addressing those toward the end of the session, but we welcome your questions. Pankaj, if I'm the CEO of a staffing firm and I want to make meaningful progress with automation to improve financial results and operational efficiencies, how do I build a successful automation program in terms of people, process, technology, and accountability?
Yeah, no, super interesting question, Maurice. I mean, we specifically talk to CEOs of all the customers that we work with, because that's really where this whole automation journey starts from. You mentioned 4 different things: people, process, technology, and accountability. And I'll kind of go through all of them in 30 seconds each if I can. From a people standpoint, I touched upon this a little bit. I think people are very, very open to automation as long as you can up-level their job. This is exactly what Matt was talking about. If you can give somebody 20% more time, and that 20% is going to mean that they make 3 more placements and make 20% more commission, they are all about it every day long. So you just have to make sure you're helping people. Automation is not about reducing jobs. I mean, I come across people all the time who think about it this way, but this is an idea of, can your sources become recruiters? Can your recruiters become account managers? Can your account managers become salespeople? Because you can keep up-leveling their roles. From a sort of accountability standpoint, we literally have created customers, I think now, where brand new positions and titles have been created: Director of Candidate Engagement, Chief Engagement Officer, literally a CEO whose whole job, or Chief Talent Engagement Officer, because this is really your product now, right? I mean, as a staffing company, we're talking about the staffing world. As a staffing company, the war on talent is over. Talent has won. That's what everybody wants. So essentially, can you give people the experience that they are looking for? Every candidate today expects a consumer-like experience, the same that they expect from Amazon.com. If I visit your website, remember my preferences. I wanted you to text me, don't email me. I wanted you to email me, don't text me. I want to get in 5 minutes or 15 minutes to a point that I can go from hello to I have an interview, or hello to I've been hired. Start there. So, I think there's obviously accountability around which KPIs are improving. We're going to baseline those KPIs. We're going to understand whether they are becoming better on a quarter after quarter after quarter basis. We're going to get to a point where the candidate experience is going to be consumerized. And we talk a lot about consumerization in staffing. And then lastly, from a process standpoint, automation allows you to have a single brand. We work with companies that will have 100 franchises, and before they were automated, everybody's sending a different message, and they come across as this sequestered, tiny companies that are just, working as one. Now, every single email that goes out has the same tone of voice, has the same message, has the same brand color, has the same logo. You actually appear larger than you are. You could be 100 franchise company and come across as sophisticated as an Adecco or an Allegis is, as Michael was talking about earlier. So, if you're the CEO, these are, I think, some of the key aspects of what you think from a people, process, technology, and accountability standpoint.
Okay, excellent. And Michael, let's talk a little bit about automation program governance. What's the right governance model for an automation program, and should automation initiatives across the company be organizationally centralized, siloed to departments, or some combination thereof?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's the overlooked hero in this whole process. And it's a real paradigm shift, in my opinion, because the roles are now changing. So it starts with, as I mentioned before, the actual automations being built by the business, by the process owners. And then you're thinking, well, then what happens to IT? And IT or somebody else needs to play the role. I call it a center of excellence but somebody needs to be on point, not for toiling away building bots and programming, but for governance, for evangelizing the program internally, for celebrating the success, for communicating it, for assuring info security. When you talk about these automations, by the way, they touch other systems. Some of my clients, the automations touch their clients in their systems. That is a far more intellectual and better use of IT's talent than I said before, than building bots. And so that's a fundamental shift. So IT, or whoever is chosen to play this role of the COE, I think the role gets elevated, but it's in a far more impactful role than, again, doing development. So I think it's a hybrid. I think the business is doing their role with building out the automations and maintaining them and making sure that they reflect the way you guys want the business done. And then I think somebody needs to play this center of excellence role to assure governance and change management is intact.
Yeah, let's talk about change management. Such an important topic. Both Matt and Pankaj have discussed that. How do we successfully introduce automation initiatives, and how do we overcome employees' fears? We talked about this delegate to automation and elevate concept. Do you have any thoughts on how to do this?
I can add my comments. I'm going to chunk it up, I guess, into two answers. I mean, the first is, well, how do you introduce automation in the first place? And that totally starts top down. It needs to be really identified and kind of evangelized internally as, hey, man, this is really important for our business, not only for profitability, but for our quality of service and everything else. And as I said before, it's super strategic for the company with big implications. I think from the very first go live, again, it needs to be communicated and kind of, internalized within the company. I think it just has to be an integral part of the fabric of your company. I mean, that's philosophical, but man, is it important. If you're going to have it be bottom up, it's just going to be another IT project. And I think this is far more strategic and fundamental. The second thing is this whole idea of, how do you position it with the employee? Again, back to, are they going to feel threatened by automation? And I've seen it very successfully positioned as a complement to the line worker, to the person who the automation is actually helping out. And if you're also honest about what processes or workflow you're going to automate, most, not all, still require a human being being in the loop. Absolutely. We do see some processes that can be completely end-to-end automated, like finance transactional things. But particularly in the staffing world, I don't see the role of the recruiter going away anytime soon.
Mm-mm.
I think it should be elevated. I think let automation offload them from all that low menial, mind-numbing, low-value, tedious work.
Yeah,
They can spend more time on the phone with a candidate. You might want to have the automation sift through the 500 resumes so they can figure out the top 5 they should talk to. But then that conversation still has to occur.
yeah.
So I think it's really important. And then again, I'm also seeing a lot of companies really promote automation, particularly if it's no code. So, the business owner can actually get involved with it as a skills enhancer. They're getting involved with AI. They're getting involved with new innovation. I mean, that's a net add in my opinion. So,
all right. Michael, those are some really great points. And I completely agree with you on the role of the recruiter being elevated. It's really exciting. One of the most exciting things about automation is just the fact that the recruiters are going to be able to add more and more value as we take away the lower level tasks, and they can really focus on bringing more value to all their stakeholders. And so I have a really, really important question I want to run past Pankaj, because I deal with this myself in all the consulting work I do. I'll go into a company and we'll quickly identify, within an hour, we can put together a list of 50 to 100 opportunities to automate. And then you have this gigantic list. How do you choose where to focus on? Like, what lenses should I use to prioritize automation investments? Which KPIs should we focus on first?
Yeah, Maurice, the first thing I'll start by saying is start somewhere. You actually said this very well in the beginning of this presentation, that less than 5% of the processes are even automated today. So first of all, just the fundamental belief that there is a huge opportunity here. Now, depending on the kind of company you are, the KPI that is more important to you is going to differ. I can tell you this: when we work with light industrial commercial firms, their KPI tends to be, hey, can we reduce our drop off rates? Can we reduce our involuntary attrition? Can we increase our length of assignment? That seems to be, their big focus. You have somebody working for you for 2 weeks instead of 1 week, you have just doubled your gross margin. So our approach there is we baseline the metrics that you have today, and then every quarter, every month, we will look at how many hard ROI dollars are being added here. When you work with an IT professional company, their approach, think about Matt's company, sometimes their approach seems to be, hey, can our NPS score get improved by 10 or 20 points? Can people start thinking of us as the first place that they need to come to when they're looking for a job? Because we don't really have a problem with people walking off of their assignments. They're going to be working for 9 months, 12 months. They're probably going to be there, but can they be happier? So, there is that. The one thing that is probably something we see across the board is this idea around database reactivation. Every staffing company is sitting on 1 million candidates, and several of them that we work with are sitting on tens of millions of candidates. You have paid so much money for these people to job boards year after year, sucking these people from the job boards into your ATS, but you no longer keep that information current. This is information that can work for you simply with some automation. You can know exactly who is available, when, how much money they want, when do they start working for you. You can literally, I won't name names, but we have companies that have saved 50% of their job board spend simply because they've now made this database their own database, exuberant, living, vibrant, to a point that recruiters first search for candidates here. So, I wish I had sort of a magic bullet answer to start here. Everybody's going to have a different priority, but you're absolutely going to know that if you start 100% measure the impact it has on your actual hard dollars or actual bottom line.
Okay, I love that answer. If you don't know where to start, just start somewhere. Before we get into the future of automation, I'd like to take this question from Lori, which I love. And maybe Matt, you can address this. Do you recommend having someone dedicated to project management for automation? They've invested in technology, but they don't ever seem to realize the benefits due to poor implementation or execution on their part. So they're super busy, and it's finding time to work on automation is a challenge. So Matt, what are your thoughts on how to do this successfully and actually get real results?
Yeah, I will. I understand where Lori's coming from. It's the age-old conundrum, right? If I only had more time to focus on tech, I'd be less busy. Well, right. So yeah. All joking aside, I think it comes down to a fundamental. You have to draw a line in the sand, right? If you're happy with the way your company is operating right now, then this is maybe like a nice to have. It's a shiny object out there that you're kind of looking at. It's kind of like going car shopping, right? That's a really nice car, but I don't need a car. I just got a car 18 months ago versus my car is about to die. And if I don't get a new car, I can't get my kids to school. And that's a real problem. I'm a real buyer right now. So I think you have to have a self-assessment with, are you happy with the state of affairs at your company? If the answer is yes, and everything's going great, then this may just be a shiny object. If the answer is, I can't retain people, or these processes I know are costing us money, or I'm starting to lose my competitive advantage with other companies because they've invested in this and that and that, then I think you have to get off the spot and say, I need to make a commitment to change. And if you're making a commitment to change, again, I don't want to be too presumptuous, Lori, but then the answer is it someone's full-time job to be a change enabler here? The answer probably is it has to be. And to give it to your best recruiter or your best sales guy or your guy that's a head of finance and say, hey, do this. I live down that road. It's not going to yield you the results that you want. It's never going to be first and foremost in their mind because staffing is a vicious game, right? Someone in finance and accounting is always worried about the next payroll. Someone in recruiting is really worried about the next placement. And somebody in sales is worried about the next client meeting. So I think it's how important is it to you? And if you think it's fairly important, then it's probably worth a seat in the organization. That's my true belief.
All right, that's great insight, Matt. And Lori, thanks again for the question. Matt, let's stick with you. How do you see the role of the recruiter evolving with increasing levels of automation?
Yeah. So this is going to be funny. You guys touched on this. I actually think it's a journey back to the past. So I'll date myself a little bit. Pankaj is probably will laugh, but there was a time and place that we conducted our business in staffing with no apps and no websites and nothing more than a vanilla folder of candidates that we would talk to on a green screen. Once upon a time, that was probably a DOS database, and the reality is which firms were winning back then. It was really the firms that had the most talent, and I don't mean talent in the database. It was individual differences. Who was a true recruiter? Who was able to spend 20 minutes with the candidate, the right candidate, and really put together a picture as to who they are and what's motivating she or he to change jobs. I think we've almost allowed all the repetitive and monotonous tasks as being a recruiter. We spend more time now, submitting candidate than we do as interviewing candidates. Well, that's a problem, right? We spend more time funneling, I think someone said earlier, to the right candidate than we do actually talking to the right candidate. And I think bots and automation will help us become better recruiters and really more higher functioning recruiters. It's going to bring back the art and science of recruiting, of interviewing, of building relationships, and all that stuff. I think has taken a back seat in the last decade or so with all of this new technology that we've really used. But if you think about it, we've just lumped it onto the recruiter's chair. We haven't really taken it away from them and said, this is a corporate function. I'm making it up. You're in a skill set vertical, and we have a Sense bot or some other company bot that's going to go out there and it's going to deliver you 15 iPhone developers every month. Your job is no longer to find those 15. It's to tell us which of the 3 are the right ones for us to represent. And I think that slight mind shift is a big deal
and
in the
it
future
will
of the
occur.
company.
All right, that's fantastic. So Pankaj, I'm very interested to get your views on this subject. So Sense is at the absolute forefront of staffing firm automation, and I'd like to learn, how automated do you expect leading edge staffing firms to be 5 years from now? And can you paint a picture of what the future of highly automated staffing looks like from an operational point of view?
Yes, absolutely. I'll give you an example of, I think, where some staffing firms are going to be 5 months from now, let alone 5 years, because that's what they're challenging us to do now. What some of our customers are challenging us to do is go from hello to hire in 5 minutes. The very first time a candidate that you have never talked to before, does not exist in your database, you have no clue who this person is, just happens to come to your website. Imagine that this person immediately gets intercepted by a chat bot, by a conversational recruiting assistant. You immediately go through a conversation in 30 seconds. Are you here looking for a job? Yes, great. What kind of job? What do you want? Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do a little pre-screening. Instantly, an integrated job matching solution comes into play and says, hey, you're a great fit for 3 roles that we have open. Here are these roles, 1, 2, and 3. And all I need from you right now is look at these roles, read the job description, whatever you want, and just tell me whether you want 1 or 2 or 1 or 2 or 1 or 3. Just tell me the ones that you are willing to get submitted to. And maybe 30 seconds later, the candidate is saying, well, 1 and 3. And instantly you're going to get, and that's another automation, a text message saying, confirmed, you've been submitted to 1 and 3. The recruiter will get that confirmation. There will be an automation with the VMS MSP system, if you had a VMS MSP system, where you literally can go submit this resume. And now you've been put into either a workflow that says we'll keep you posted on when your interview is, or oftentimes when you're hiring folks in a commercial light industrial establishment, like, I want to hire a forklift operator. I've asked you all the questions. Do you have a forklift operator license? Yes, you have the job. Hello to hire. 5 minutes later, you have a job. And maybe I will automatically schedule you with the recruiter to verify some information, or we can just verify that on site and you can show up. So, I mean, we're not far from a world where people are going to, just as you can visit Amazon.com and 5 minutes later buy the exact thing that you wanted, you could go to a staffing company's website and 5 minutes later have a job. Now, I know it sounds a little provocative. It sounds like this will never happen. This will never go. We have customers challenging us to do this today. So, I mean, I feel like the future is already here. I completely believe that some firms will take 5 years to get there, but I will tell you that some firms are going to get there in 5 months and lead the way, to create this holistic sort of hello to hire experience.
Absolutely fascinating, Pankaj. Hello to hire in 5 minutes. That's great. And, that's the thing. Folks like yourself think about this and you make it happen. So, I want to, in our last remaining 3 minutes, ask each of you to provide any words of sort of final words of advice on successfully automating a staffing firm, starting with Matt. 60 seconds.
Put a target in place where you want to have one process automated, have the whole company march towards it. If you're not going to hire someone individual, make someone responsible for it and make it an attainable goal and just do it. Just get started.
Excellent. Michael.
Yeah, echo the same. Just get started. For those that haven't started the journey yet, the benefit to you with the time that you bought yourself is all the speculations out of it. It's going on all around us. We try to make it really easy to educate your team. We consult every day with our customers on automation and the pitfalls, pros and cons. And after those sessions, there's a whiteboard full of potential automated processes to go after. And you make it inclusive. Don't do it as it's an IT project. Do it top down and let the businesses all participate in this discussion. It's a bit of an ad, but it's sincere. We make it very easy to start that. We provide a no-cost trial, so you can stand a couple up, use the no-code capabilities, and we provide all the training. And if it's as no-code and as easy as we're saying, this isn't months here. In a couple of weeks, you should be able to stand up some processes and reach out to me. I'd love to help if you have interest.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Pankaj.
Yeah, Maurice, I was going to say, listen, in summary of what I've been saying in this conversation, automation is here to stay. First of all, make peace with that. Secondly, digital transformation of a staffing company precipitated itself during the pandemic. Most staffing companies were at some point in their technical journey, and it got precipitated in a moment. You suddenly got to a point where you were no longer seeing the talent. You were no longer interacting with your own staff. You were no longer interacting with customers. Everything became virtual, and you absolutely had to depend on technology. You have positions open today where nobody's applying because people are still on unemployment or they're starting to think about changing their careers, and you've had to cast a wider net. You had positions where 700 people are applying, and you have to find the diamond in the rough. Everything here points towards technology. My belief is eventually both candidates and customers are going to become a commodity. You're going to know very much every single job that Google has opened, every single job that General Motors has opened. It's not a secret. You're probably going to know every single candidate that exists in the world because discoverability is an all-time high. You're no longer living in a world where I'm a recruiter, I only know these 20 people and nobody else knows these 20 people. Candidates and customers are going to be a commodity. It's what's going to matter is your operational efficiency in linking these two together and the experience that you provide both of these parties.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Pankaj. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I've learned a lot in this conversation. I want to thank the World Staffing Summit for producing this event, Talent Tech Labs for producing today's sessions. And I hope everyone has a great remainder of this summit.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks, so long, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Maurice.